Hello and welcome. I'm Oksana Bonita. This is Midwest Crime Corner. Let's get into it. Before we get into today's video, I want to do a little housekeeping and apologize for my absence on here. Life has been a little hectic and full for me the last few months.
The moon!
My 5-year-old started kindergarten, and that in itself has been very chaotic. She got sick about 5 times already since school started. And on top of that, my husband has been working on a model railroad layout for our local library.
There we go.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
So since all of his free time has been taken up, thus too my free time has been taken up. And with everything going on, it's been really hard to focus on the channel. In addition to all of that, I've also been researching stuff to start my own business for my house, and we're gearing up to start doing renovations on the house again. So it's just been a lot of research and just figuring things out and getting all my ducks in a row before I start executing everything. Then on top of all of that, it was the 2-year anniversary of a really bad car wreck that my husband and our daughter and I were in. And subsequently, it is the 2-year anniversary of my reborn day because I got a TBI. I received a mild TBI in the car wreck. So if you or someone you know has a TBI, then you probably know about reborn day. It's basically like the worst birthday you could have. I won't get into the whole story, but we were on our way home from a family reunion. We were about 6 minutes away from our house on the outside of town. Someone was speeding a little bit and they blew their stop sign and hit my door and sent my SUV rolling. I blacked out on impact. We slammed into a guardrail. We spun off of that. I blacked out when we hit the guardrail too. I woke up briefly during the rolling. The initial impact into my door was so great that it shifted my seat over about 3 to 4 inches. While my reborn day is in no way a celebration at all, this TBI has completely changed my life. I already had health issues prior to it, but then the TBI just made everything worse. I'm basically in like a permanent flare. I'd like to think that I'll have some remission at some point, but both conditions that I have, they aren't really something that you can get rid of. So then on top of that, I have the TBI, which it's hit and miss on how well a TBI can heal. It just depends on your brain, I guess, and how bad the impact was. I wouldn't have started my YouTube channel probably without having gone through the wreck and the TBI. This time last year, I couldn't read a script. I'd get really, really bad migraines. I still get bad migraines if I spend too much time at the computer and reading too much. But it all affects it all affects how I read how I process stuff, how I speak. I forget some of my words sometimes. That's why I have to write really detailed scripts for my videos, which is fine. I think actually working on this channel is helping me to heal a little bit through my TBI. And it's also helping me to identify some of my deficits when I go back and edit, because I can tell when I talk. Because I was on the speech and debate team when I was in high school. This is kind of what I'm used to, like talking and performing in front of people. I was no theater kid by any means, but writing my own scripts is what I did on the speech team, and then I performed them. So this is really my forte right here. So my reborn day is in no means a celebration for me. It's usually a day of reflection, resting, some mourning because of the impact that it's had on my life, and just doing what makes me feel better during that day. Just kind of play everything by ear. We also had mediation against the driver that hit us. So that also left my mind in a million places leading up to it. We had a good case, but and any kind of legal proceeding just kind of makes me like, because you never know, really. I mean, you could have a good case and still not win. So definitely one of those situations where you plan for the worst and hope for the best. That's usually kind of how I go into every situation. So, but everything went well. So that's good. I really didn't think that it would go too bad, but again, you never know. Without further ado, let's get into it. Before there was Chris Doerman, there was Aaron Schaffhausen, and if you know who that first one is, then you probably know where this case is going. Aaron Schaffhausen committed the ultimate act of betrayal when he took the lives of his 3 daughters in order to hurt their mother for divorcing him and later moving on with her life. An all too common case of an abusive man lashing out at his ex and taking the lives of their children. DV comes in many forms, with women also being the perpetrator.
Don't touch my Don't ever touch my Enough's enough already. Nothing to do with ever.
Go in there. Go in there.
I hate you. Are you friends with her? Let me know now. Are you friends with her? Are you friends with her? Out of here. Look at me. This is my last time trying. Are you friends with her?
There are more than plenty of examples of DV in American TV and movies.
I'm your fiancé.
My fiance! Yes, you are, and my wife in practice, if not yet by law, so you will honor me. You will honor me the way a wife is required to honor her husband.
According to the DV website, thehotline.org, here in the United States, an average of 24 people per minute are victims of DV. This includes victims of R-word, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate or ex-partner. That equals to roughly 12 million men and women who experience DV in the United States each year. Chances are you or someone you know are survivors of DV. I unfortunately share that commonality. I will provide resources down below for anyone that needs them. And DV isn't just something that can happen between an intimate partner. It is something that often occurs between family members as well. A child growing up in a home where DV is happening is more likely to experience DV themselves when they grow up. When a woman is leaving a man who is violent, controlling, and abusive, that is the riskiest time in her life. Throw kids into the mix, and the threat goes up. I cannot stress enough, if you fear your partner and what they might do to you and your children, you need to make an exit plan. Do not tell your partner about your plan. You and your kids' safety is the most important thing. You need to move in secret. I know not everybody has the resources to leave when they want to, or especially when they need to, so that's why I'm going to provide resources down below for those who need it. There is no shame in leaving an abusive situation, especially when children are involved. There is no shame in having to go to a shelter. It's better to go to a shelter than to end up in a body bag. Aaron and the girl's mother, Jessica, met in 1999 when they were in college. With Jessica becoming pregnant with their oldest daughter, Amara, the two married in May of 2000, with Amara being born on October 5th, 2000 in Springfield, Illinois. Aaron is reported as being a hands-off father, leaving Jessica to do most of the parenting alone. Despite the difficulties caused in their marriage by Aaron, he and Jessica went on to have 2 more children. Sophie came into the world on December 27, 2003 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A sweet little Christmas baby. I am sure that was a very special time for Jessica, having Sophie be born so close to Christmas. I had my son in December of 2023. His due date was Christmas Day, but he was born on the 19th, so 6 days before Christmas. But it was such a magical time, and it was a really special thing to have him born so close to the biggest holiday of the year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jessica felt a similar way. I can picture the excitement that she was probably experiencing. By the time 2007 rolled around, little Cecilia was born on May the 17th, a late Mother's Day baby. How special was she? But the marriage between Aaron and Jessica deteriorated, so much so that by the latter part of 2011, in August of that year, Jessica filed for divorce from Aaron, with the divorce becoming finalized in January of 2012. Jessica has described Aaron as being an absent father, but not a malicious one, though all of that changed after the divorce. Aaron went from absentee husband and father to obsessive and only looking to hurt his ex because she rejected him. Jessica and the girls stayed in the home that they once shared with Aaron in River Falls, Wisconsin. The house was in Aaron's name, but he rented it to Jessica while he lived in North Dakota for work. As Jessica felt that she was ready to date again, Aaron felt differently. and he began to distance himself from his own children, all because he couldn't handle that Jessica was really moving on with her life. Aaron began harassing Jessica and not showing up for visits with the girls, which only negatively impacted them. They loved their daddy so much, and all they wanted to do was spend time with him. But Aaron was only thinking of himself and how he could lash out and retaliate to hurt Jessica. Aaron was so angry and hurt by Jessica divorcing him that his hate and anger for Jessica was greater than his love for Amara, Sophie, and Cecilia. At some point, Aaron made threats to Jessica, saying that he wanted to tie her up and make her pick which daughter to unalive in front of her as punishment. When I read that was it for me. It is said several times during his trial that Aaron Schaffhausen is a coward, something that seemingly angered his aunt.
But in talking about Aaron being a coward, I will promise you he's not a coward. He deserves, wherever you send him, he deserves to go for life. I will say that. Send him for life. But stop saying he's a coward. He's not a coward.
She doesn't seem to think that Aaron is a coward. She did make this statement over 10 years ago, and I hope that she's had time to reflect and understand why her nephew is indeed a coward and why you cannot use mental illness and his depression as an excuse for what he did. Especially as we get further into this and we get into the details of everything, Aaron Schaffhausen is a coward. He knows it, I know it, and you know it. To have the audacity to say something that cruel to the mother of your children, and even to just suggest that about your children, to do that to them, it's absolutely unconscionable and something that only a coward would do. And Jessica seems like such a nice person from the interviews that I've read and watched of her. She was married to this man for 10 years. I would be very surprised if she never brought up her concerns about their marriage to Aaron. She probably did a lot, and he just didn't care. So she probably tried to look past his shortcomings and stayed with him as long as she could bear it. I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't basically waiting for him to step up to the plate, to be the husband that she needed, and to be the father that her girls needed. And before we get further into this, I have seen people specifically here on YouTube in comments on multiple different videos having to do with this case, insinuating that the girls' deaths are Jessica's fault and that she pushed Aaron to do this and that she should have known better because she's a social worker. First of all, I couldn't find any evidence that Jessica was a children's social worker. I read in an interview that she had been working for an agency that dealt with elderly people. So even if she had been a social worker for kids, like that still doesn't make her responsible for what happened to her kids. If I ever see any victim blaming of Jessica down in my comments, I'm not even going to address it. I'm just going to delete your comment and ban you from my channel. So Aaron makes that horrible threat to Jessica about tying her up and making her pick one of the girls to unalive. And just like any normal person, Jessica went to the police. She told them what was happening. They told her to make a report and to make a restraining order. But just because she makes a restraining order, that doesn't mean that that's going to stop Aaron from doing something to her or to the children. So after Aaron made this horrible threat to Jessica, a few months went by, and surprisingly to Jessica, Aaron apologized to her and he wanted to reconnect with his daughters and have a relationship with them. Jessica was cautious, but she did want her daughters to have a relationship with their father. She didn't want to deprive them of that. So she cautiously agreed that they could meet at a public park and he could hang out with them there during the day for a little bit, but he was not allowed to come over to their house and spend any time over there with the girls. So after this initial park visit went well, Aaron began to have video phone calls with the girls, and he was regularly staying in touch with them. Aaron's harassment ceased, and it seemed like he was actually putting forth the effort into being a good father to his children. And slowly, he began to gain Jessica's trust back. Jessica finally felt comfortable to start dating again, and around the latter part of June of 2012, she started to date. And in the beginning part of July, it was decided that her boyfriend should meet the girls. But sadly, he would never get that opportunity. On July the 10th, 2012, the girls had a somewhat busy day. All three of them had dental appointments that Jessica took them to, with their babysitter later picking them up from the appointments and bringing them back home to babysit them until Jessica got home from work. That evening, it was planned that Jessica, Amara, Sophie, and Cecilia were to meet Jessica's boyfriend, eat dinner, and go to a local park to watch a concert. But the plans were interrupted when Aaron contacted Jessica and said that he was in the area and he wanted to see the girls. Jessica told Aaron that her and the girls had plans that evening as a family and that he's welcome to come over, but he had to leave before she got home and she did not want to see him. Jessica then reached out to the babysitter to let the babysitter know that Aaron was coming by to spend some time with the girls. The babysitter later described to the detectives how excited the girls were to see their daddy. They rushed to him with enthusiasm when he walked through the door. Then excitedly, they ran upstairs to show him their bedrooms and all the things. The babysitter hugged the girls, and then she left. About 2 hours after Aaron had arrived at the house, Aaron called Jessica and told her, "You can come home now because I've killed the kids." Jessica was 40 minutes away from her daughters. She immediately phoned 911. The 911 operator stayed on the phone the entire time Jessica made the 40-minute trip back to their town. Police arrived at Jessica's home and found large amounts of blood on the floor of a bedroom, and all three girls were deceased, tucked in their beds, with the blankets pulled up to their necks. After the heartbreaking discovery was made by the police, the 911 operator instructed Jessica to go straight to the police station. Jessica knew in that moment that her three bright, beautiful little girls were gone. Roughly an hour after Aaron made his horrific phone call to Jessica, he surrendered himself to the same police station that Jessica was sitting in. When Aaron was brought inside, he was walked past the very room that Jessica was sitting in. As Jessica could hear him walk past the door, it took several people to restrain her because she was trying to physically attack Aaron for what he did to Amara, Sophie, and Cecilia. During Aaron's almost 3-hour interrogation, he was virtually unresponsive, telling detectives that he did not know if he killed his daughters while sitting there with their blood on his shorts. Aaron was ultimately charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted arson. Aaron had initially pled not guilty to his charges, but 4 days before his trial date, Aaron changed his not guilty plea. Because of the crimes that Aaron committed, he was facing mandatory life sentences, 1 for each daughter. On March the 29th, 2013, Aaron had the audacity to enter a guilty but insane plea. Schaffhausen stated that his motive behind being a terrible father and taking the lives of his 3 daughters was solely to hurt their mother, Jessica, for divorcing him. He claims that he did all of this as a punishment for Jessica. But at the time of the murders, he did not know right from wrong. July the 10th, 2012, Aaron walked up the stairs to his daughter's bedrooms, and he chose to commit one of the worst acts a parent can commit, simply because he could not control his emotions. Aaron could not find a healthy way to cope and move on from his divorce. Our children do not ask to be here, and yet so often they are caught up in adult bullshit, used as a weapon against the other parent. Amara, Sophie, and Cecilia loved their daddy so much. They were so excited to see him that day, and he betrayed them in the worst way. During his trial, several people testified that in the months leading up to the unalivings of his daughters, Aaron was making statements that he wanted to unalive them. The girls' maternal grandfather said it best during Aaron's trial. Aaron didn't just take the girls from everyone. He also robbed the families of future generations. It was an absolute annihilation. Aaron slit the throats of his 3 daughters, with little Cecilia having shown signs of strangulation, as well as having 1 defensive mark on one of her forearms. During the trial, when pictures of the crime scene and of the girls were shown, Aaron showed no emotion. After taking the lives of his 3 daughters, Aaron took the time to clean up a little. He went to the basement, he washed some clothes, he put each girl in their bed, and he pulled the blankets up to their necks. He had also taken t-shirts and wrapped them around the girls' necks, but it didn't seem like an attempt to soak up any blood. It seemed more like an attempt to just hide the wounds in general. While in the basement, Aaron had started a fire and spilt a can of gasoline, seemingly an attempt to set the house ablaze, to destroy evidence, and what I would think would be another way to hurt Jessica by burning the girls' bodies, by destroying evidence, by destroying her house, the girls' house, all of Jessica's things. It just seems like another attempt to hurt Jessica to me. But thankfully, the fire didn't take and it fizzled out and didn't cause much damage. In April 2013, the jury ruled that Aaron was indeed sane during the time of the murders. It took jurors 3.5 hours to conclude that Aaron did, in fact, know right from wrong when he took the lives of his 3 daughters. Aaron was found guilty for the crimes that he committed, and the judge presiding over his case handed down 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Leading up to the trial, the home that Jessica shared with her daughters at the time of the murders was owned by Aaron. The house had gone up for sale, but nobody wanted to buy it. Jessica had also made pleas to the public to please do not buy this house, because in doing so, you would be contributing to Aaron being able to afford better legal counsel. Ultimately and thankfully, the credit union which the mortgage was through ended up buying the house back. And then a construction company came in, dismantled the house, and then they sold the pieces to Habitat for Humanity, with the proceeds of that going to a playground that was built in the memory of Amara, Sophie, and Cecilia. In addition to the funds from the house being used to construct the playground, Jessica had a local art auction of the girls' artwork done. Most people generously donated without wanting to take the art away from Jessica. Unlimited play, game time, and Playworks helped to design and bring the memorial playground to life. To help honor the girls, they wanted to create areas of themed play that help symbolize Amara, Sophie, and Cecilia. They custom sculpted the slides to look like shoes. Amara loves science and she loves soccer. So there's a pyramid of soccer balls there for kids to climb on, and then there's also a giant microscope for kids to climb on as well. Sophie's art was used to add design elements to the top of the canopies, to the play structures. Little Cecilia loved bugs, and so insect sculptures and butterfly-themed elements were also added to the playground. And Jessica had begun dating her current husband just 2 weeks before the girls' murders. With their marriage in 2013, Jessica went on to have 2 more children, a daughter in 2014 and then a son in 2015. Jessica stated in an interview that she knew she needed to have more children, that she needed to have people to mother so she could keep that part of her alive. Jessica has seemingly done the impossible to many, to thrive after such an immeasurable tragedy, to balance grief with growth in the best way that she could. Jessica later went on to write letters to her 3 girls, which then morphed into a 5-year writing project to honor and remember her girls, the horrific day of their murders, and the aftermath of it all, and the strength and perseverance that she had to find through her grief. Jessica channeled her grief through writing her book, Thistles and Thorns, and I will leave a link down below for those of you who wish to purchase it. In an interview about her book, Jessica stated that, yes, horrible, horrible things happen. Life can be full of tragedies and traumas, but it is possible to survive those. Every time I read a case like this, where a parent takes the life of one or multiple children, especially when it is done in order to inflict emotional pain and trauma on the other parent, I'm always baffled. I will never understand it. And to be honest, I don't think I want to understand it. At first it was hard for me to understand how Jessica was able to survive and then thrive after something so horrific. My initial thought, like many, was that if it were me, I would have just crumbled into a million pieces and ceased existing. How does anybody live after something so terrible? As I mentioned before, I'm no stranger to trauma and loss, though I've never lost a child, and not obviously in such a horrific way. And not that every child loss isn't traumatic, but this case is egregiously so. But looking at all of this from a DV survivor's perspective, Jessica's strength makes sense to me. Jessica had to survive and thrive after what Aaron did to the girls and to her. Aaron's goal was to make Jessica miserable for the rest of her life for leaving him, and he failed because Jessica has thrived. Aaron failed just like he failed Jessica in their marriage, and just like he failed the girls in being the father and protector that they needed. Aaron failed those closest to him, including himself. Jessica faced her pain head on and used it as a source to propel her forward. In another interview, Jessica stated that she is only doing what she would want the girls to do had the roles been reversed, had they survived and she lost her life. You know what Jessica stated about how life can be full of tragedies and trauma, but it is still possible for us to go forward and to survive them. It's absolutely possible. When you go through a life-shattering event like that, you're never going to be the same again. It's easy to give into the grief and to let it be all consuming. I do think it is healthy to sit with your grief, to wallow in it, but at some point you do have to move forward, even if it's just baby steps. You will still continue to grieve. That's never going to go away, but you can't let the grief continue to run your life. Thrive out of spite is one of my favorite phrases, and I think it can help to be a good motivator. Aaron is serving his time for the crimes that he committed, and this is one of those cases where I find that life without parole is fitting. Some cases, I do believe that the murderer should end up on death row, but it should be a case-by-case basis. It all depends on the circumstances. If a parent takes the life of one of their children or multiple children, I think that death is too easy of a way out for them. It's too good of an option. I think that type of a crime, that type of unaliving, the parent should have to sit in prison for the remainder of their life. Life in prison without parole, I can't think of a greater hell on earth, especially depending on what prison you end up in. Aaron is in fact serving time at the notorious Waupun Correctional Institute in Wisconsin. It opened its doors all the way back in 1851. This is the same prison that Chris Watts was transferred to and is currently housed in. This aging institute is also the same prison that was recently under fire after a felony investigation was launched earlier this year after several inmates have died throughout the last several years due to neglect by prison staff. I do believe that this prison is in the process of shutting down due to its age and undoubtedly the systematic issues from within, but I hope during his time there thus far that Aaron has been miserable. He has had more than enough time to sit and reflect about what he did to his daughters. This case is a prime example of why it is so dangerous when women leave their husbands or their significant other, especially when children are involved. Anyone who harms their child to get back at the other parent is the lowest of the low. Like I said before in my Amanda Ham video, our children do not ask to be here. It is our job to protect them, even if that means that we have to protect them from ourselves.
Mother is the name for God on the lips and hearts of all children. Do you understand?
That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment your thoughts down below. If you have a Midwest crime or a missing persons case that you would like to see me cover on this channel, please comment down below. Reach out to me, let me know, and I will cover it. I'll catch you in the next one.